Imagine that you are driving this car. It's an open road. It's a beautiful day. There is not much traffic. You accelerate. You feel the power of the car. You decide to overtake this vehicle in front of you. It's just a small decision, but it's your decision. So let's alter the scenario. Imagine it's the same road, the same destination, the same beautiful weather, but this time an AI system is driving that car. It drives as good as you do, as efficient than you do. Maybe it's even better. But still, something feels a bit off here. Suddenly, the kind of freedom the multi-billion-dollar car industry advertises with is somehow gone. So this talk is not about cars. It's about a more fundamental question, and that is, when AI can do basically everything that we can do at some point, what is actually left for us humans to do? Is this only about efficiency, or is there more to the human experience? What does it mean to be in the loop? And what does all that mean for human autonomy? So, human autonomy is an important principle of many AI guidelines and also government frameworks. When we think of it from a psychological perspective, it's a psychological need, satisfying the need for autonomy, being the author of our own action that creates happiness, joy. Removing that can hurt, or we begin mentally starving if our autonomy is violated. But being in the loop can mean many different things. Would it mean to just accept a ChatGPT output? Or would it mean to co-create something together? Which of the small activities in a corporation are the ones that we want machines to do, and what is it what we want to do ourselves? For a long time, we meant that autonomy basically means to maximize the control that a user would have in their computer system. And this is something that we wanted to test. So we ran a large-scale study with nearly 200 participants about future agentic AI systems. The scenario we took was AI for mediating communication. Imagine it the following way. You want to send a message to me, but there is an AI system in the middle that will see, Philipp is currently working, focused and concentrated on something, so I will not interrupt him now. I will delay the message that we are sending. It's not important enough. And with that scenario that we presented as videos to our study participants, we altered the version of how this AI could work. In some situations, users had full control. They could always say, deliver this message to Philipp immediately. In other version, this was not allowed. The AI simply said, no, Philipp is concentrated now. We will deliver this message at the next appropriate point. And sometimes people could negotiate with the system. I think this message is important enough for Philipp to be interrupted now. And then we asked people how welcome they would such an AI system in their daily life. We might assume that full control, that's the thing that provides autonomy. That's what everybody wants to have, right? But this was not the case. What we could find out is that what is most important is whether that AI systems would be aligned with people's values. So if you're a person that also is using silent mode on their phone, who wants to work concentrated, then you're perfectly fine with the I take over these decisions as long as you have at least some control, for example, to negotiate. That was somehow surprising to us because for a long time we simply meant the more control, the more autonomy, the better for the users. So what we learned is not the case. We have to rethink what human autonomy means and how we can support it. But now we began to realize, okay, this becomes no more a purely technical decision, it becomes a design decision. And asking about these designs, we came back to one of our car examples. So at some point, we had to design a control interface for an automated vehicle. And to do that, we decomposed the driving task into many different small components, like lane keeping and steering, speed control, and then there are higher level decisions, lane changing, or also you want to overtake somebody. We went then on a gas station on the Autobahn in Germany, and we asked people while they were refilling their cars, what actually is it that makes you feel good in highway driving? And the answers were surprisingly consistent. So people said, steering, it's boring. Highways are straight most of the time anyway. But yeah, accelerating, that's a lot of fun, and overtaking other vehicles, especially on German highways, of course. So with these answers in mind, we designed a new concept where we tried to combine the advantages of automation and human autonomy. Our system worked in a way that all the time the car would perfectly drive itself without a need for human intervention. But also all the time, people could just accelerate and brake. They could change the lanes and overtake vehicles. The aim was to nurture their need for autonomy. We made a comparison between this hybrid interface with a traditionally fully manually driven car and this fully automated car where you would not have to do anything and where you cannot do anything. And as expected, while the automated car was rated as not making people feel very autonomous and not very fun, this hybrid interface was as engaging for them as traditional driving. But at the same time, all the benefits of automation were still in place. AI would care for the safety margins, AI would steer the vehicle, AI would look for them that they don't make the errors, but they could still engage in that task. So having this finding now allows us to think a bit deeper. What could this mean for the design of the particular interaction of, let's say, speed control? We could say, okay, let's simply make these buttons on a tablet computer, right? This works, or a slider or something. This is how we work in computer science and HCAI. But not per se. We can also imagine different things. What would be something that somehow communicates the power of the car? What material would it meet? How would the interaction look like? What about this thing? A heavy metal lever inspired by aviation, as you will find it in an airplane. You have this heavy crank, the car is driving automated, you just push it forward, you feel the weight of the thing, and suddenly, boom, the car accelerates. And no, for some of you, seeing the picture and hearing this story may have created another need. That could be a nice interaction, right? I also know that not everybody would agree here, because for some, driving a car is just not a fun experience. They just want to get from A to B. But this again just shows that it's not per se always about the autonomy, but also about the values that you were talking about. So, again, this is something that doesn't just apply to cars. I've seen this resemble also in other scenarios. Recently, I had the experience of students in my programming class. When confronted with difficult problems, they said, "Hey Philip, I just made a picture of your slide and the AI immediately gave me the code to run that." But interestingly, they were not much faster in handing in the final results of their exercise. So something felt a bit strange here. I asked them, what is it actually that makes programming fun for you? What is the meaningful part of this activity? And they said, yeah, it's cool to see the problem, to begin to understand it, and to ideate the solution, how it could be solved. I said, yeah, and see, that's the part that you just have automated by using ChatGPT. We automated the meaningful core part of programming, but you were still left with all the friction around it. You still had to install all the tools. That can be quite tedious. And in the end, when ChatGPT gave you some output, you have to make that code run, you have to test it, to debug it, and as it's not your code, you're not sure where to start for looking for the errors. So again, distinguishing a task into many different small subcomponents and thinking of what are those aspects that provide the meaning when I will do this task, and automate for exactly the opposite. That is what can generate a great human experience. So what would all this mean now for the future of AI and potentially for steering wheels? Will we have steering wheels in the future in cars and other systems? And I want to again emphasize, in the end, this is just a design decision that we, as the creators of these systems, have. Too often, we only think about what can we automate, how can we make systems more efficient, how can we make people more efficient. But one question we should ask more often is, how can we make the experience for the people using these systems just better, more meaningful, and how can we nurture their need for human autonomy? So, as I slowly come towards the end of this talk, I want to make this story a little bit personal. This is the first time that I'm on TEDx stage, so I had to prepare for this talk, and of course I used the AI to help me do that, right? But I tried to have these design principles in mind. I was sitting next to my fireplace in my home with a glass of red wine, next time maybe with the wine from your region, and without a computer. And I thought a lot about the story that I want to tell, the structure that I want to give it. And then I asked an AI system to challenge my story, to challenge my structure, to find an appropriate wording, because I didn't want to get lost in these kind of academic talks that I would typically give. I also made it create all the pictures to not run into copyright issues. But I really tried a lot to preserve the meaningful core of my experience, and the experience of giving this talk is not just now standing here on this stage, it is everything that is with that activity, preparing the talk, getting here, giving it, seeing it. I could also have just simply uploaded a couple of my research papers to an AI system and said, generate the TEDx talk for me. But then I would not be the author of my own experience. It would not feel as good. It would rather feel as if I would be just a chauffeur who brings the content to the stage that I haven't created myself. So when the next time you are seeing some new AI system, or maybe better, if you are one of the persons designing new tools, new systems using AI, then have this in mind. Think of what is the structure of activities that is to be automated here? What could it be that could be meaningful for people? As said, it's quite individual. It differs between different people, and you can ask multiple of them, and if you're using it only yourself, then it's an easy decision for you. And if you think that using this AI system would really take something meaningful away from you, then redesign the structure of the process, redesign your role of how this AI is used. So actually, we have a bright future ahead, because we can use these beautiful AI tools also as an enabler. It may enable us to do things, meaningful things that may have been very dangerous in the past if you would have done them fully manually. Sometimes it could simply be a good idea to use something in a gaming context or in a safety critical context to simply provide this kind of interactions that make us happy in our life. So whether we have this steering wheel in reach in the future is, in the end, solely our decision. Thank you.